Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. Good morning to you once again. Have a Bible, please open with us to the book of Proverbs this morning. The book of Proverbs, chapter 24. We'll begin by reading verse 27. Proverbs 24:27. And take our subject from there, which is round pegs and square holes. Round pegs and square holes. Proverbs 24, verse 27. Okay. Prepare thy work without, and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house. Some of you were still looking to find the text, so you didn't hear me. So let's read it again. Proverbs 24:27, prepare thy work without, and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house. I want to talk to you about round pegs in square holes. Peculiar. So is my custom. But this verse speaks of preparation. It speaks of planning. It speaks of purpose. It speaks of perseverance. If that word makes you nervous, I could tell you just to get over it, but it speaks of commitment and continuance in a cause. And that cause is building your house, not someone else's, or as I used to be told, not tearing somebody else's down to make yours look better. Perhaps from the title of the round pegs and the square holes, some of us that have been living very long and participating in life itself have experienced the feeling or the thinking of yourself to be that round peg in the square hole, or as we might say, a misfit. Actually, the thought of a round peg in a square hole comes from the idea of trying to attempt or to force something into place where it's too big or not shaped right to fit, or it doesn't belong. Do you follow me? There used to be another saying in my secular field that I worked, or my job, when this was under consideration, that if it don't fit, force it. To which most of us, including me, was wont to say, or pretty well responded, well, get a bigger hammer. Make it fit. Now, what usually followed from such brilliance and wisdom was the destruction of the part that you were trying to force in where it didn't belong. Or it could be the ruin of the complete project. Or that you were attempting to get back working again. You follow me? The frustration and the failure of that resulting reality tends to be more of the destruction. This didn't work. Well, that tends to be the result in the feeling of not measuring up. Things just don't work, and you just don't understand why. That tends to be more the result of such thinking than the satisfaction of a job well done. Trying to make the round peg fit in the square hole. You ever tried? Huh? You ever tried? How did it work for you? Don't turn out well, does it? What actually is required to make the fit is further adjustment or alteration to that which you're trying to place or to add to the structure or the project that's under construction. Our text is advising us that the measuring, the proportioning, the preparation for the actual construction is to be done in the field, not on the job. Now that's somewhat of a foreign concept. Do you follow the thinking from the text? Let's read it again. Prepare thy work without. Make it fit for thyself in the field. And afterwards, after the preparation, after the fitting, afterwards, build thine house. Okay? All of this is to be done away from the actual place of assembly. So that when that part or whatever it is that's under consideration, this piece of material, this particular piece or part that's supposed to do this or that, or to be replaced, when it comes to the actual assembly, or is presented, it fits. It fits. And notice the text says, fit for thyself. You see that? And make it fit for thyself in the field. The preparation is made by one that's got a goal in mind. They got a finished product in view. They can see the end result. They got an idea of what it's supposed to look like. They didn't throw the box away. They got the picture on the front of the puzzle. This is what the thing's supposed to look like if you get it all together. You follow me? And also, notice that it says, and afterwards build thine house. Don't miss that. So all your preparation and your planning and your fitting and all of this stuff that you're doing out there in the field is for the building of your house. Your house. It's a place that you're planning on staying there. It's where you're planning on living there. Most likely, it's a place where you're planning on raising a family there. And if you're thinking right, I'll just go ahead and say according to the pattern, you're planning on not only raising your family there, but you're planning on leaving this house for another generation to do the same. Are y'all thinking? Are you with me? Wow. What a foreign concept to our modern, spontaneous, spur of the moment, by the seat of your britches, virtual world. We're not talking about building a rental property or a commercial building. We're talking about building a home. Something very private and personal. Are you with me? You thinking? Let's read the text again. Prepare thy work without. Well, I don't want to pass that point. Are you listening? That tells me that you go outside the house to work. Work stops when you come in. And I see particularly some of you sisters looking at me cross-eyed about that. Well, it don't stop when I come in. Well, get the principle. Get the principle. Your work is to be done outside. And make it fit there. So that when you bring it in here, it finds its place. You see, there's supposed to be some kind of purpose in what you're doing out there that finds its place in here. Interesting. And it's your work, not somebody else's. It's your job. It's your calling. It's your occupation. It's your vocation. And you're doing it out there. Not so much in here. You thinking? And when you get it done out there, and it fits, it's right. It's right size, right shape, right proportion, right weight, right height, right width. Then you build your house. And it'll fit. Well, let's look at another text. We're talking about round pegs, square holes. Trying to force something in where it don't fit. Let's look at another text. 1 Kings, chapter 6. I want to read it to you. Verses 1 through 9. And tell you that this is actually contained here is the thought that put me on this trail. 1 Kings chapter 6. Begin reading verse 1. And we'll read through the 10th verse. So a little bit of reading. And I'll try to do so without comment. till I'm done reading. So now pay attention. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1, and it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. And the house which King Solomon built for the Lord, the length thereof was 80 cubits, the breadth thereof was 20 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits. And the porch before the temple of the house, 20 cubits was the length thereof according to the breadth of the house. 10 cubits was the breadth thereof before the house. And the house he made, and for the house he made windows of narrow lights. And against the wall of the house he built chambers round about, and against the walls of the house against the walls of the house round about, both of the temple and of the oracle, and he made chambers round about. The nethermost chamber was 5 cubits broad, and the middle was 6 cubits broad, and the third was 7 cubits broad. For without in the wall of the house he made narrow rests round about, that the beams should not be fastened in the walls of the house. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone, made ready before it was brought thither. So that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in building. The door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house, and they went up with winding stairs into the middle chamber, and out of the middle into the third. So he built the house and finished it, and covered the house with beams and boards of cedar. And then he built chambers against all the house, 5 cubits high, and they rested on the house with timber of cedar. Wow. Now pay particular attention to that verse 7. Do you get the context? We're talking about when the temple of God was built in Jerusalem by Solomon. A lot in that. But now notice this, verse 7. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone, made ready before it was brought thither. So that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in building. That is a fascinating, phenomenal statement that I know is true, but is beyond my comprehension. This temple, of its size, shape, design, and these stones that this speaks of which it was built, these blocks, we're not talking about little bricks. We're not talking about little bitty masonry blocks. We're talking about huge stones, tons, stones, sawed out, fitted, and notice it says they were prepared before they were brought there to be assembled. So that when they were put in place, this is what's being said, so that when it was all put together in place, assembled, there was not the sound of a hammer, of an axe, any tool of iron, when it was put together. Listen, there wasn't any hammering. Get a bigger hammer, make it fit. This one here is just a little bit, drive it in there. That's where it goes. There was no grinding on it. Well, it's just a little too tight. Let's give me a hammer and a chisel here. We'll chip some off to make it slide in it. Wasn't that bad? Do you get what's being said? That the work that was done in the rock quarry in the preparation of these stones was so precise, so professionally done, like somebody had an idea of exactly where they was going to place this one when it got there. Whether this was a foundational stone or a cornerstone or a wall stone or a capstone, somebody had a blueprint and a plan and an idea and an image in their head of what this thing is going to look like when it's done, and their work was so exact. Out there in the quarry, as they cut the rocks out of the side of the mountain or dug them from the ground, as they shaped them and fed them and chipped them and sawed them, their work was so precise, prepared, that when they brought that big stone into the place, numbered or whatever it was for where it fit, and they moved it towards its position, it just it fit. It didn't have to be hammered or prized or knocked or moved. It just set in place. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? The temple of God, so well planned and thought out by Solomon, that when it was assembled, it just all fell in place. Isn't it amazing? Now, obviously, if you've gotten paid attention, you know that the one that it's talking about, that built it, says that when this was done, that Solomon began to build the house of God, right? We're talking about Solomon. You know who Solomon is. Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. Okay. And it speaks of him as the one that built the house. And I hope that you know, if you don't, briefly tell you that that doesn't mean when it says, and he's given as the credit or the name of, could have been a plate out there built by Solomon. But no, actually that would have been right. This is not saying that he's the one that actually did all the work. Listening? This is not saying that Solomon is the one that cut out the stones out of the mountain, sawed them out to fit. He's not the one that went and cut the trees, sawed the lumber, and prepared the boards of cedar. He's not even the one that come up with the blueprint. It was given to him. He's not even the one that gathered up all the materials for the house. A large portion of what was used in the building of the house, outside of the cedar and the stones, had been laid up for years and years and years in preparation by his father, David, who had the idea and the great desire to build God a house. But do you remember why God told him that he wasn't going to build the house? Because he was a man of war and had shed blood. David was a man of war who had shed blood. Let me just tell you by that war and bloodshed doesn't build God's house. Do you hear me? Solomon, a man of wisdom and of his time peace, the descendant of David, David's son, would be the one that would build this house. But now, listen, David was not, listen to me. David, when he was told by God, even of his great desire to build God a house, when God told him that, no, you're not going to build it, David didn't hang his head and suck his thumb and kick rocks and get mad and walk away and say, I'll just quit, I'll not do anything. When David was told by God that he wasn't going to be the one to build the house because his life had been one of war and bloodshed, and God wouldn't allow that to build his house, but your son will do it, then David stockpiled for years his conquests of war, the things that he had gained in the field, the things that he had gained by overcoming enemies, the gold and the silver and the precious stones, and the things that he had gained by his wars and conquests. He stockpiled for the building of the house of God. Are y'all listening? He made plans and preparations in his day by his conquests in the world for the building of the house of God. And God gave David the blueprint. God gave him the plan for the building, and David passed on these supplies and materials. He even told Solomon what kind of men and where he would find fellows that were skilled in certain things. Masons, rock cutters, fellows that were skilled in timber, knew how to saw. Y'all know they had sawmills back then? Yeah. Knew how to cut boards out. I just marvel at the size of the boards, man. What trees they must be. The cedars of Lebanon. Wow. And he gave all of that, passed all of that on. See, David, in his preparation in the field, was making it fit for himself. And then he built his house. He passed it on to another generation to see it assembled. Let me just make a point right. Just because you don't get to drive the nails in the wall doesn't mean that you ought not to prepare for somebody else to get to. Just because you don't never see the roof on the thing don't mean that you ought not to be buying shingles. Do you understand me? Huh? Well, I ain't never going to get to see it, so it don't make no difference. Let them figure it out when it comes their time. That's pitiful. That's pitiful and ungodly. So it was passed on to Solomon, and he was the one that was doing it, but he wasn't the one doing all the work. Because we learned that there was many involved in the actual assembly of the building. But it speaks of Solomon as being the, if you will, the general contractor or the overseer of the construction. And it gives us insight into the fact that he had a blueprint to go by. Amen? And it was given to him by the great architect of all, and that's God himself. Those that did the work, those that held the pattern, much of the materials were the spoils of the battles of his conquest. David, we've said that. and were contributions of the nation of Israel themselves. I love it because you remember David said to Solomon when he was passing on, when David was dying, and he was stepping back. He said, "Now I'm old, my days by time spent." And since just put it in this way to you, he says, oh, and he can say this, "I made a royal mess." I mean, he's the king, he made a mess. So I made a royal mess of my life. But God's covenant stands sure, it ain't changed. Now my son Solomon is young and he's tender. He's inexperienced. He's going to need help in this. And David was saying to Israel, and I charge you, I hold you accountable. Step up and help him in the building of the house. And here's what I've laid up. Now what will you bring to the building of the house of God? You need to be vested in it. You need to make not just contributions to it, but you need to buy into this house. So you got part and parcel in it. And in that way you can call it your house. But you're going to have to make preparation. You're going to have to make plans. You're going to have to make it fit. And I can tell you, the majority of what you're going to contribute to the house of God, you're going to earn it, you're going to gain it, you're going to take it out there. And it's to be brought in here. But what you gain out there is going to take a little bit of adjustment to fit in here. You follow me? You're going to have to grind off some rough edges and do a little chipping. You're going to have to cut back on things and proportion it right. You don't just come bringing it in here and just squat on it. No. You're going to have to trim up what you gain out there so it'll fit in here. But you do that out there so that when you get in here, listen, there ain't a whole lot of noise. We don't need a bunch of hammering and knocking and prizing and pushing and shoving and trying to force things where they don't belong. In here. You with me? So, notice that the stones that built the house, that formed the house, were made ready. Yes, sir, they were huge stones cut out of the quarry, professionally done. I use that terminology, and I want you to go. I'm weary of the mentality that thinks what goes on in the house of God is done by amateurs. Or folks that just don't know any better. I'm weary of that mentality. I want you to know that what goes into the house of God is done by professionals, by the elite, by the best that there is. And I dare say that if I or you don't think that, there's something wrong with our thinking. Because if you think what's out there is better than what's in here, you tell me why you've got to adjust that to bring it in here. And if that be so, tell me what adjustments you would have to make on what's in here to go back out there. All right. So, The form of it, the size and the shape that was brought in it had been designed and listen, and was made fit for one particular place in the walls. Be that foundation or on one side or one corner. Remember, the design was, the pattern was, the size, the shape, the height, the length, everything was already laid out. And you don't think it don't get particular. If you want to back up into the Old Testament times a little bit further, go over there to the tabernacle, down to the threads that were in the curtain were specifically designed by God, and those in charge of doing it were held accountable to Him for even threading. God's protected. How in the world did we ever get the concept that God's haphazard with building His church? Huh? And that He takes just any old thing. And just any old thing will do. And what you got left and it got too much of it at the house, well, bring it up or give that to the church. Lord have mercy. I know one preacher, and I want to say this, just to say that he said he got so fed up and tired with it. He got so fed up and tired of looking around their building there and knowing that it looked like the house of a hoarder. Because the church is where everybody brings their leftovers and all their broke stuff and brings it up there and donates it and gives it to the church. Because now they don't need, they bought them a new one. And the church can have this one. Don't go back there and look and see how many wore out used up vacuum cleaners we got in the closet. Why can't the church get a new? Oh, well, you see, but we can't afford it. Wait a minute, hold it. Oh, Lord, get me off of this. The church can't afford that? Why did you just give that one to the church? Well, because I bought a new one. You're the church! You just bought you a new one. You gonna tell me the church can't afford one? You just bought you one. And you're the church. Lord have mercy. Excuse me. Let me get off of that high horse for a second. Woo! Where'd that come from? Out of me. All right, excuse me. Back to these stones. When they was brought into the house of God. Y'all still with me? Didn't scare you off, did it? Back up here. Okay, I'm okay. No. When they was brought to the house, whatever they were, I want you to get it. They were fit for where they were to sit. Wow. There was no need of chipping, sawing, grinding. They fit the spot that they were made ready for in the field. Did you know that you're supposed to be planning on coming here during the week? Not planning on how to get out of coming here. Not planning on everything else that's going to keep you from it. But you're supposed to be planning on getting everything else out of your way so you can fill your spot in the house of God. Because that's what you're designed for. Wow. It was not in the temple that stones were made fit to go back to the quarry. But it was in the temple that the stones found their place of, listen, of rest. That's where they fit and were to remain. You get me? If they were took back to the quarry, it's because they didn't fit and they'd been rejected. A couple more passages I want to read to you real quick, and we'll be done. Maybe for this morning. The first one is, because I just want some terminology from it. This apply to this. First one is Ephesians chapter 2, verses 19 through 22. Let's read it. Read them. I'm going to read them both to you right quick. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 19. Now, therefore, ye are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom all the building, fitly framed together, groweth unto an holy temple in the Lord, in whom ye also are builded together for a habitation of God through the Spirit. Did you hear that? And the last one, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. 1 Peter 2, 4. To whom coming as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of God and precious. Ye also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house and holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God by Jesus Christ. Wow. I want to notice first from Ephesians chapter 2:21, it says, fitly framed together. You get that? Fitly framed together. That's the exact same phrase and meaning that is used in Ephesians 4:16, where he says, fitly joined together. It has the idea of two pieces of the same fabric, or two pieces of the same materials in the same structure, being so joined together that there's no seam, no joint that is seen or noticed, even detectable. It's the phrase, and I wonder where this was first used, that the two become one. They're so joined together, they're viewed by God as one unit. Inseparable. Well, this is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Okay. All right. Awesome. Awesome. It means there's no gap or space at any point in the joining together of these pieces. It means that there's no gap there, because every little gap, every little crack, a schism, is a weakness. It's a place where water or some other substance or something might get in and divide when it expands. In a fabric, it could be a place where a tearing might occur or might happen, and the whole garment be rent in two pieces again, be torn apart. I could illustrate, but I don't have the time. I'm going to take you to, but just look at all the potholes we've got right now after the snow and ice. Did you know that's what caused them? There were little imperfections in the blacktop and the concrete there. And the water got in there, and the ice and the expanding of water busted the concrete, broke up the blacktop. That's why all the potholes are showing up now. That's why job security. Gaps, cracks, imperfections. It wasn't fitly joined, fitly framed. But the house of God is so intended to be. There's many applications here and lessons that can be developed or illustrated, but the text is applied to the church. And the people, the members that make up the church of the assembly, are spoken of as lively stones. Did you get that from Peter? lively stones, not dead rocks. That simply means, from one account, it means that they are active, lively, living stones, active. They're not dead rocks just sitting there. They're actively involved. You say, well, what possible activity could a rock have? Holding on to the one next to them. You want to know that's what your job is? Is to so attach yourself to the one next to you in the wall or the floor or the ceiling or wherever you're at, that you pull yourself so close to the one next to you, there's no crack, there's no seam, there's no gap, there's no schism. Because if there is, every house divided against itself shall not stand. Now, whatever relationship or situation you want to put that in, I said there's many illustrations, but in concerning the church, wherever there's a crack or a gap or something out of place, that's a weakness that the devil will drive a wedge, that round peg in there where it don't fit. And there's a division. There's a schism that will destroy the entirety of the church. Your job, every one of you that are members of this church's job is to so attach yourself to every other member of this church. To have such compassion and care and involvement that this church stands for the next generation. And listen, this is a phenomenal definition of a lively stone from the Oxford Dictionary. Did you know that a living stone, a lively stone, is a native stone? Did you know that? It's an indigenous stone. Well, what does that mean? It means it's, I know, it's a phenomenal thought. It means it's a local stone. It means that the church is made up of local people who find their spot in the house of God and stay. Yeah. We're talking about the local assembly. Let me just say this. You can't fill your spot in the local assembly sitting in somebody else's house. And every time you do that, you weaken the house of God. You belong here, nowhere else. You mean I can't go some other place? No, that don't mean you can't go somewhere else. But that means when it's time to be here, that you're making your plans with such vigor and vim, and you're making such anticipation and such eagerness that you would be off somewhere else to be right here come worship time without fail. Yet, not forsaking the assembling of yourselves together, as the manner of some is. Wow. Hear this. Hear me on this. This kind of, can you tell, doesn't it? This kind of gets under my skin. And I'm condemned and convicted as much as any of you are. If this don't work for me, it ain't going to work for you, and I shouldn't expect it to. So I assure you, I ain't saying anything to any of y'all. Whoever you think you are that thinks that my preacher show is being hard on me. Let me assure you, I've been 10 times hard on me. Here it is. We are not to be fitted in the church to be comfortable in the world. You don't come to church to make yourself feel comfortable in the world. The world cuts and beats on us so that we only find rest in filling our place in the church. Joy comes in submission to Christ, and tribulation comes in resistance and force to fit into the world. That is the trying to drive the round peg in the square hole. Child of God, you do not fit in the world. Do you get me? Do you wonder how come you have so much trouble, there's so much turmoil out there, and all of that's going on out there, and it just bothers you and upsets you, and the more you think about God and stuff and all that, that's the hammer trying to drive you in the square hole. You do not fit in the world. You're not designed to fit in the world. He that will be the friend of the world is the enemy of God. Well, you shouldn't have said that. I said it again because it's the Word of God. That's Scripture. You're trying to get along with the world, you will never have peace. There is no peace in the world. Jesus said, in this world ye shall not have peace. But be of good cheer. For I have overcome the world. The greater David has fought the battle, overcome the enemies, taken the spoils of the battle, and has given us his plan and provisions to build his house. Do you understand me? And it's not supposed to be. It's not intended to be the place of a whole lot of noise, even loud-mouth preaching. It's not intended to be a place where there's a bunch of grinding and beating and chipping and knocking and hammering and confrontation and ridicule. Because war don't build the house, it tears it down. There remaineth a rest for the children of God. And in the church, it's okay to be square there. I know in my youth, they used to say, man, no, get with it, man, get it, man. You're just a square. You don't fit in. That's right, I don't fit here. When you start talking about things of God, trying to do things that's right, and start trying to change your ways and live right, man, you just don't fit. You just don't fit in the world no more. I remember some of my guys telling me one time about so-and-so, said, man, he got religion. You just can't get along with him anymore. Well, that happens. I don't want you to get religion. I want you to get Jesus. But I guarantee you, if you get him, and he's the desire of your heart, and you talk about him like that you are so wound up in, you don't fit the world no more. They don't want to part with you. You're just a square. But it's okay to be square there, here, because that's what you've been fitted to in a specific place. All right. And if you know yourself to be a sinner before God and you seek to find rest, you'll never find it in this world. It doesn't work with friends, jobs, marriages, even churches, until you're ready to take your place and stay where you belong. no one's required there. Just find your spot and stick. When you stop trying to force your way in and yield to the pattern, you can find rest. You may have been trying to be a capstone, belong in the basement. Well, if you do, take your place. Know this. It's the stones down there, you know, the Lord, the chief corner, the apostles and the prophets. They're the ones that hold up the whole structure. If you belong beside one of them, take your place. You're holding up the rest. You may have been trying to hide out in the corner and not be noticed. But if you belong in the wall, take your place. How about all of us put down our hammers and saws and prize bars and chisels and just look at the pattern? That's Jesus. And try our best to fit in and stay. Are you a misfit? Feel to be a misfit? If you're feeling that way about the way you are in the world, good. Because in the world you are a misfit. If you're feeling like a misfit in the church, I can simply tell you it's because you haven't found your place. But in the church, you have a place. Find it, fit it, stay, and you'll find rest. Because that's where you've been fitted to build. You understand? Thank you for your good attention. Let's stand together. Sing a verse or two, hymn. Someone wish to acknowledge the Lord, become part of this assembly. If you want to fit in, you let us know what the Lord's done for you. And we're glad to hear it.
Number 92.